I love this tool, and with this tool, I can do everything.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of find it a bit stupid, actually. It's not marketing today. It's also and you need multiple.
Hello, and welcome to episode 35 of Rockstar CMO FM. The M is for marketing, the F is for, well, you decide. As you're probably asking yourself, does the world need another effing marketing podcast? I'm your host, Ian Truscott, founding editor of Rockstar CMO, your monthly dose of marketing street knowledge. You can find us at rockstarcmo.com or at Rockstar CMO on Twitter and LinkedIn. And you can find all the past episodes of this show and the show notes at rockstarcmo.com/podcast. This episode recorded on Friday the 6th of November. I'm going to avoid all the politics. I hope you've had a good week, that you're feeling well, keeping safe and staying as sane as you feel you need to be. This week, I dip into the latest issue of Rockstar CMO. I chat to Christian Beer, the CEO of Dynamicweb, and I again retire for the weekend in the Rockstar CMO virtual bar, where I find my friend and content marketing guru, Robert Rose. Right, let's get started, shall we? My flick through the virtual pages of the latest issue of Rockstar CMO has me landed down the rabbit hole of Alice in Wonderland. As Keith Smith, Managing Director of The Advertist, the UK's only independent new business development platform, quotes Lewis Carroll in his article that explores the topic of this month's issue. If you're a regular listener, you'll know that this month we covered the question of whether it's better to build on rented land, pinning your content strategy on big tech and social media platforms, or invest in building a digital platform that over time will give you an owned property to build your brand. Keith is a regular contributor, something of a business development expert, and he brings the pithy point of view of sales to each month's theme. His latest article is no different, as he focuses on shifting boxes. The quote from Alice in Wonderland he starts with is, "You couldn't have it if you did want it," the Queen said. "The rule is jam tomorrow and jam yesterday, but never jam today." He goes on to make the point that if you're goosing your market share by renting or paying for numbers, eventually you're empowering someone else or something else. As he says, if you're doing it to earn hollow statistics that don't shift boxes, then stop it. If you need to do it to sell products, do it. But bear in mind that you're enabling someone else's business. Better to shift your own boxes by building a lasting strategy that has vision and clarity of purpose. Hard work has its own reward. Wise words, Keith. And as the Queen says, delivering jam tomorrow. You can read more of Keith's perspective in his article, Jam Tomorrow and Jam Yesterday, but Never Jam Today, in the Life for Rent issue that you can find on rockstarcmo.com and by clicking on the latest issue button. Right, I think that's quite enough from me. Let's hear from someone else. It's time for the interview segment. After a couple of weeks of chatting to folks in agency land, we hear from the world of marketing technology with Christian Beer, the co-founder and CEO of Dynamicweb, a global software company founded in 1999. Christian is a data and marketing-focused CEO, is a strong believer in uniting product information management, e-commerce, and content management into one cloud-based platform, and his vision and knowledge has been instrumental in turning Dynamicweb into a global player within this space. It was super to chat to Christian. I hope you enjoy this interview. Hi, Christian. Welcome to Rockstar CMO FM. For people that don't know you, Christian, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for hosting me today. My name is Christian Beer, with the funny last name, but it's actually like the drink. My career started around 20 years ago when I founded Dynamicweb, and that's a company that is delivering a digital experience platform for content management, e-commerce, and product information. So I've been in that space for the last 20 years. I'm based in Denmark, in a Scandinavian country, and this is where the company is headquartered and we're working from. So that was the ultra short bio. Well,
we'll get into your background a little bit more.
Yeah.
And you're talking to us from Aarhus. I'm not pronouncing it right in Denmark, right?
No, pretty good. Pretty good.
Getting close. So you founded Dynamicweb 20 years ago. What inspired you to start that business?
Yeah, I'm actually the co-founder. So I started with a fellow student. We went to a business school here in Aarhus, and 20 years ago, it's actually almost 21 years. Then we had a quite virgin internet, and what we figured out was basically that there were a lot of businesses who needed a website, and we were students. And at that time, you have to make a living while you're a student. So it seems quite logical that we should help these businesses. My co-founder, he's a bit more geeky, and he could do all the coding and all the for me difficult stuff. So my job was basically to go out and find some clients and close some deals with them. So we had something to live off, and we could spend the money in the Thursday bar at the university and having fun. So that's basically how it started. But after kind of being and doing the first kind of projects, we figured out that there were a requirement or a need among customers to update and maintain the websites themselves, which of course we today take for granted. But at that time, you needed to work with HTML or a program called Microsoft Front Page, which was a nightmare for those of you who remember. So we made a small application and then presented it to our customers, and then the customer said, "Yeah, that's great. We can build pages, but how do we deal with images? How do we deal with this? How do we deal with that?" And, that was kind of way that we started working with customers, and we at some point still do it today, because if you have a customer with a need and that is generic enough, then it's interesting to put it in your product, and that's basically what we did. So in the beginning, it was primarily content pages, simple web pages. Later on, in 2002, we started out with the first e-commerce solutions, because at that time it was actually possible to sell stuff online. It was a bit more tricky than what we and not maybe the same experience and smoothness as we are experiencing today. But it was the way that we kind of got into e-commerce. Since that, our company and platform has evolved until where it is today. So product-wise, we have had this close relationship to customers and trying to understand what they need. The way or area that we currently differentiate is that we have a single inside-out build platform that caters not only CMS but also e-commerce, product information management, and marketing automation. Right. So that has kind of been the journey from where we started and to where we are now. So some of it is coincidence, but I would say that it's also a good portion of focused strategy, and also listening to customers and the ecosystem, of course. So I have to make a play on words with your name. So you were inspired to start the business by beer, then? Yeah. As a student, that's fantastic. So now you've 20 years later, you've got a global company, and of course, as we record this, we're still in the midst of this pandemic. How have you guys adjusted in the way that you've worked across your various offices across the world? We are so fortunate that we are in a business where a lot is done digital. Also the possibility to work from home. So for us, in terms of the everyday working experience in the office, the transition to be kind of working from home and also sometimes being in the office has been quite easy, because that's what we normally do. We have a lot of people working remotely. So in that sense, the challenge hasn't been that big. On the other side, if we look at customers, of course, some of our customer has been hit very hard by this. Others haven't. We have seen new customers accelerating their digital plans due to the pandemic. And since we are, spread around the globe, we have also experienced that the pandemic hit with different timing. So when we in maybe the Scandinavian countries had a lockdown, there were several other countries that wasn't locked down. And now when we're having the second wave here, well, I guess it's pretty bad everywhere now. So so right now it's probably bad everywhere. But in the beginning, it was possible for us to work with different regions where the pandemic hit at with different timing. But overall, we are quite fortunate. So we have been able to follow our kind of projected plans and also grow the pandemic.
Yeah. So, and how, as a leader in this business, have you, because a lot of people have found that the struggle where people aren't coming into the office, it's hard to onboard new people. There's that kind of slight lack of, social element to the office life. How have you, as a leader, tried to sort of keep the team together on Zoom, as it were?
Yeah, that's a good question, and it's difficult. We have we are a Scandinavian-based company, and I think the culture of a lot of Scandinavian companies are quite, we have a quite flat organization, and I think we're also pretty open. So that is kind of our nature. And then, of course, what we have done and what we normally do is that we host monthly meetings for everybody in the business. But that format hasn't really changed that much because before the pandemic we worked from different offices, and now with the pandemic we work from micro offices or from home, but the format is still the same. So again, I think being a tech company is definitely a benefit here, because the transition hasn't been that hard in terms of that. But of course, we also have some kickoff and gatherings in person, and of course they had to be postponed, and basically there's nothing to do there, so we just need to live with it. And so overall, pretty good, I would say.
And you mentioned part of your platform, you provide an e-commerce solution, and we've obviously seen a big rise in demand for e-commerce as the shoppers have kind of digitally transformed themselves, as all of us are now ordering more online. What changes have you seen this year? Have you seen that reflected in your customers and the trends that you've seen?
Yeah. The funny thing is that if you look at our pipeline for new customers, what we experienced with the pandemic was that a lot of those who were in the pipeline, they postponed things, whereas suddenly a lot of other opportunities popped up because they said, okay, this is something we cannot live without being digital. So from our micro perspective, that was one thing we experienced. What I've also experienced, if you look at what Gartner, McKinsey, Forrester, or those guys, they measure in terms of trends around us, then I've seen a shift that more research post-purchase is being done online, whether it's B2B or B2C.
True.
Prior, of course, purchase. If that's the case, and I really believe in that also from the experience we hear from our customers, then of course e-commerce is becoming strategically more important, and that also calls for better solution, better product description, better experience, better maybe videos that describe your product. So you really need to stand out there if that's the primarily contact you have with your customers. And especially we have a lot of B2B companies, and especially those, they really struggle on this because sometimes their website is basically just a digital business card, and because what they sell is so complex that they cannot sell it online, and their customers are so special that they cannot really buy or purchase anything on e-commerce. So those kind of types of clients, they're really having a hard time in transitioning themselves.
But it's that transition to virtual selling, isn't it? As you were saying, I mean, Gartner and Forrester have recognized that everybody, all buyers are consuming more content prior to talking to a vendor. So it's that, isn't it? It's that transition to virtual selling, and that virtual selling starts before anybody even contacts you.
Yeah, and that's a trend that has been there for many years also in the B2C space. But I think there's a shift now, because having a sales rep in the B2B space now, having a sales rep visiting customers, that's really not an option. So how do they punch in orders then, and how do they create value? So a big shift is happening. Of course, it's the same with retail. So if you're a consumer, if you're a retailer or consumer focused organization, you need to move and be able to take orders online. And the same with B2B. If you have sales reps running around, they cannot really visit anybody. So there's really a change there, and it's just due to this COVID situation, then it's being accelerated. And where I see basically the biggest challenge, whether it's B2B or B2C, that's of course systems is one thing, but it's also a cultural and behavior based kind of mindset that you really need to think your sales process, you need to think your business digitally, and for many organizations that's a big challenge that they're currently facing.
Yeah, and do you predict that's here to stay? Do you think that the world has now changed, and that this terrible phrase, the new normal, is here, and that now what's basically happened is an acceleration of a trend that was already happening in the digitization of consumers, and that this is here to stay now?
Yeah, we haven't seen technology being really rolled back. So if you get some tech benefits like a smartphone or something, it's really hard to get rid of, because when you suddenly experience that it's much easier and it's going way more smooth than you're used to, and it's more efficient in the B2B space. Why should we roll back then? So I think the pandemic has just strengthened that trend we already saw before it, but it's definitely there now, and we have jumped several years ahead. I would say in terms of that's maybe the positive thing of this. Actually accelerates a transition or development in other areas when it hits us.
That's interesting. So that's a prediction for the future there. Now, this is a marketing podcast, and I've been in the CMS industry for 20 years as well, and I was with Vignette back in 2000, and so I could geek with you about content management and e-commerce for the rest of the day. But I need to get back to marketing. So, as a CEO, what do you look for in marketing? I know you've made a recent strategic hire there, and what do you look for when you're looking at your marketing team?
Well, obviously we look for smart people, because marketing has become way more complex than it used to be. So that's, of course, the team is everything. But when you got the team in place and you look at deliverables from my point of view and from the business side, obviously a very important thing is demand generation and generating leads to feed the business. Another important area is, of course, branding and awareness. So you cannot only focus on, in my opinion, you should not only focus on demand generation. There's more to it. You also need to stand out, and you need to build a reputation around the company, and demand generation by itself doesn't do all the magic. So I think branding, awareness, leads, that's key areas that we focus on, and that I would like to see from my marketing team.
Right. Okay. So anybody coming to work with you needs to focus on those things.
Yeah, I would say, but and underneath that, of course, there's a lot more tactical disciplines that, of course, we need to master. But I think as a prerequisite for all of this also is that all of that can be delivered, pretty much ad hoc. or in a systematical way. And what I also look for and expect from marketing is that you can actually work with systems, data, and not only analyze it and show me a nice graph, but also turn that into decisions. And I think that's a way that we have been working quite hard for the last couple of years, and we'll continue doing that, is to all this great contacts and kind of one-to-one context we do. How do we turn that into maybe nurturing? How do we turn that into something where we can, based on data, qualify things better, aggregate it in our system, and empower our sales organization to basically have the right timing before they reach out to it.
And I guess your platform enables that for your customers, so you're very much in that kind of business anyway. So as a CEO, you're probably very tuned into the needs of marketing anyway.
That's a tricky one. Yeah, but I would say yes. I'm a marketing and market-oriented focused CEO. So I would strongly believe that. I also focus very much on the product side, of course, but it's closely aligned. Product and market. Our product and marketing is definitely closely aligned. I would say that.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, I mean, that's always good to hear that marketing and product are closely aligned. That, in my experience, that hasn't always been the case. So it's fantastic to hear that. I'm conscious of your time. Finally, I'm going to come to our final question. We have a regular feature, the Rockstar CMO Swimming Pool, our portal to marketing hell, where we throw all the bullshit, snake oil, and stuff that annoys us about our industry. What would you chuck into our Rockstar CMO Swimming Pool?
That's a good question. If I should, I think one of the things that often annoys me is that it's so one-dimensional what is being said and done in marketing. So it's, if you look at it from us being a vendor approaching marketing people, I think sometimes the marketing people are way too focused on a tool. I love this tool, and with this tool I can do everything.
Yeah.
And I think I kind of find it a bit stupid, actually. It's not marketing today. It's also running a tech stack, and you have multiple tools. But being, if you want to build a house with a hammer, you'll probably need some other tools around it. And sometimes it's just, being in love with the tool and not focusing on the process and the data and what else goes on. I think that sometimes annoys me when talking to marketing people. So, and design is one element, but what is good design? That's a question. But for me, it's more important the long-term data aggregation, how things fit into a stack, and how you overall can make the business more data-driven and competitive. So this, because I'm used to this tool, or because it's beautiful, or something else, which doesn't really do the trick for me. That's sometimes what I'm often met with, and that's
I love that. I've had that with a client recently where they were saying, we need this tool. If we had this tool, we would do this. And I'm thinking, well, you need to think about what you want to do, gather your requirements, then think about the tool, not the other way around. So that's really interesting. Thank you very much, Christian. Well, I enjoyed that conversation. Thank you very much. And if people want to get in touch with you, Christian, where will they find you?
Yeah, they can find me either in LinkedIn. I'm open to connect there, or definitely also at our website, Dynamicweb.com. And I believe my email is even in there. So feel free to reach out.
Yeah. Well, I will include links to you and to your website in the show notes. Thank you very much, Christian. I'll speak to you again soon.
Thank you.
Cheers.
Cheers. Bye.
Thank you, Christian. Amazing how many technologists I speak to that want me to chuck marketing tools into the swimming pool. And I couldn't resist talking to a chap called Beer, who started his business to buy beer. Very Rockstar CMO. I will, of course, include a link to their website, his social media links, and all that good stuff in the show notes. Right. It's Friday evening here at the Rockstar CMO penthouse in London. Time to round off the week with a cocktail in the virtual Rockstar CMO bar with my friend and content marketing guru, Robert Rose. Good evening, Robert. What are you drinking?
Oh, it's good to see you and hear you, my friend. Okay, so we've had quite the stressful week here in the United States. Maybe you've heard a little bit about what's going on here.
Yes.
Tonight we are feeling rather celebratory, I would say. Clarity has been had. And feeling pretty good here. So I am cracking open something a bit unique. So beyond tequila, I am a huge fan of red wine, and specifically Italian.
Splendid.
And so I'm cracking open here for us a bottle of 2010 Conti Costanti Brunello di Montalcino. And it is an absolutely spectacular bottle of wine that I find from time to time. And the Brunellos are, of course, my favorite wine, my favorite region. It is an absolutely spectacular wine to be drunk on a celebratory evening in a fall chilly day where we have lots to clink glasses to.
That sounds splendid. And I would, yes, I am also a fan of red wine. I really should join you, but seeing as, we always talk about this being a cocktail, somebody ought to make the effort, right? So I'm going to join you with perhaps a pre-dinner drink before the red wine.
Sure.
I wonder if you can guess what this is. You didn't put any ice in yours, did you?
No, there would be no ice. There'd be no ice there. Yeah.
All right. Well, I'm just going to drop some ice in this, if you don't mind, and of course, some of this delicious. It's from Europe, not Italy though. It's Hendrick's gin. Let's have a bit of that.
Well, that's not red wine.
Yeah.
But we'll do.
And you don't put anything in your wine, do you?
No.
Well, I'm going to put some
no mixer
tonic
in the wine.
I'm going to put some tonic in this. All right. There we go. And what did you call this?
This would be a Brunello di Montalcino. This is what this would be. Yeah.
Nice.
Nice. That's a red wine.
What are the tasting notes on that particular wine?
Oh, it is just it's a big red. I'll say that.
I love it. I love big red.
It really should be had with a meal of some kind, usually a steak or something like that.
Yeah. Tomorrow night, because we are actually recording this on Friday night, as just to make the point that where you're talking about current affairs, we are actually current today. And yes, Saturday night for me is steak night with a nice big bottle of red. But for now, let's sample what this is. Oh, that's very nice, Robert. I'm not quite getting the big redness.
No,
probably
not. Probably
a lot of thin clearness. But that's delicious. Thank you very much. And what was it called?
That would be a Brunello di Montalcino, yes.
I'm going to include a link to that in the show notes. You'll have to send me a link to that so that people can share that, because I love a big red wine.
Yeah,
so and I presume that we're drinking this out of glasses that look like vases, right?
Yes. Yes, and decanted as well, yes.
Oh, delicious. And I mean, you've just mentioned the steak. Where would we be drinking these?
Well, it probably bears mentioning to drink this somewhere in the U.S. But given our lack of travel over the last few months, I think you need to be in Florence, do you not? I mean, come on!
Nice.
I mean, if we're gonna go drink a big bottle of
red
Brunello,
wine,
we should be in Florence doing something wonderful. Absolutely.
And it's not too shabby down there this time of year either, is it? So be gorgeous.
Yes.
That sounds splendid. And so some nice grilled meat, a couple of big vases of this stuff. And what are we chatting about?
Well, it's something that is, I think it's related to what we've been thinking about over the last month or so as we've progressed toward, the culmination of our big change here in the U.S. And it's something that sort of is aligned with the sort of dumpster fire that is 2020.
Yeah.
It's this idea of where we find ourselves with change. I think everybody has gone through some big change this year, and probably one of the things that we all have in common is some level of fundamental change here. And I was having this chat with a CMO of not a huge company, but a mid-sized tech company, and she had lost 90% of her team this year, just because of the economy and everything else that's going on in the world. And recently, as the C-suite, and she's of course included in that, is reconfiguring and rebooting and, thinking about big changes for 2021. And they said, hey, we're going to make 2021 a growth year and we're going to go. And everybody's sort of, having these big discussions. And she was telling me her first reaction to all of that, which is common when we get a big, sort of change thrust in front of us, which is, well, fine. If I hadn't lost my entire team, I could totally do this. Right. Yeah. Or she's thinking, why me? Why now? Am I ready for this? And it's something that I find that is common, which is when we have this big change sort of stuck in front of us, our first reaction in many ways is to think how it's going to change us, and are we actually capable, and the challenges with it, rather than how it's going to evolve us and help us move forward in what it is we're doing. And it's a really interesting perspective to start to have in mind, especially as we in many ways celebrate a good change here, as well as some of the negative changes that continue to remain. It's not like all the problems went away. No. It's not like all of the challenges don't sort of sit in front of us as we start looking toward next year. Yeah. And as I was thinking about this, it's like, change, when you think about it, starts with discontent, right? We always change because we are uncomfortable in some way. And so we move, right? We make a move, or a move is put upon us. But whether or not it becomes progress, forward progress, really just depends on the direction of our first step. Yeah. And so if we think about that first step as, helping us think about evolving instead of, how it's going to hurt us, we might be a lot better off. And so that was a conversation I had with that CMO, and it was good. It was we felt a lot better after that.
Yeah. And that's really interesting, because when it's happening to you, it's very easy to get wrapped up in it, even though it could be a really good opportunity ahead of you, but it's sometimes hard to see it, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, it's good for me. It's one of those things that I need to be reminded of time and time again, which is, how do we actually balance the, when we look in the mirror, and we see, where there's this big change in front of us, and we see all of the sort of bags under our eyes and the wrinkles and everything. What we need to remember is that that's not the result of the change that is facing you today. It's the result of all of the progress you've made in the changes that you've been making for decades, right? And so, it's one of those things where this is a really good time to say, how do we actually use all this change to move forward, to move, to evolve ourselves, to progress? And it's just I find it's just a better way to look at it.
Yeah. And I think, earlier in my career, I always felt that if I felt completely comfortable in what I was trying to do or the next job or whatever, then there was something wrong in that I had to feel a little bit of fear, because that I knew that was going to result in growth. I mean, I'm not sure that I'm that young man anymore, but certainly that's how I used to feel. And I was listening earlier on to a podcast where they were it was the Marketing Book podcast, where Douglas Burdett was interviewing Seth Godin, and he was talking about imposter syndrome. He was saying everybody should feel it. If you're feeling imposter syndrome, you're doing something right. And I thought that was an interesting perspective, which kind of relates to what you're saying, right? Is that when there's change, you're feeling those butterflies in your stomach, aren't you?
Yeah, that's right. You know, and it's what you do with those butterflies really that defines, you know, whether or not you move forward or you fall backward, right?
Yeah, yeah. And is it something that you faced yourself?
You think? Yeah. We have another vase of wine? Yeah, I mean,
absolutely.
You know, yes, of course. This is for those of us that are out there in the world being solopreneurs and running around trying to run a business, and as well as sort of make a living in today's world. I mean, it's, you know, it's every day, right? I mean, and you know, it's not exclusive to us, but it's certainly not, you know, it's certainly not something I don't have to deal with either. It's you know, it's it's there for sure. And that's why it, you know, that's why it was such an impact on me, because it's such a big piece of what you think of, you know, when you're reminded that, you know, I mean, there's that wonderful saying, which is, you know, be kind to people because you have no idea what they're going through. Right. And it's true. You know, it's easy to convince ourselves, especially after looking at social media as much as we do and all of that, that you're the only one faced with a particular issue, you know, or a particular change or a particular challenge. And in many ways, you know, we have to get beyond that sort of utopia that is, you know, I mean, it's like, it's either doom scrolling or looking at the amazing, you know, family picture that everything is peachy keen, and there's nothing in between, right? Nobody posts up like, I'm having a mediocre day, you know? It's like, you know, I'm having a challenging, you know, sort of a challenging day. You know, it's either like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing ever, or, you know, oh my God, it's all doom and gloom and we're all going to die.
Well, and very rarely, I mean, I know that we probably both know people that do the doomy thing, but most people are posting a highly edited version of their best lives, aren't they? And it's the same on LinkedIn. It's
or
the
their
same
worst
on
life, right? You know, because I have those people in my feed as well.
Luckily, I don't have too many of those, but but you're always comparing yourself to the people that are living their best life, thinking, you know, here's this. So how did the conversation go with your CMO, Tom? How did she feel then, faced with this challenge with only 10% of her team?
Well, she ended up looking at it as a you know, as a new way to reboot, because, you know, ultimately what she came to the conclusion to was, you know, it wasn't that she had lost 90% of her team that was going to make this hard. Mm-hmm. It was that she was going to have to build a new team that made this possible, right?
Right.
And you know, that and that's an interesting idea. And it wasn't that the old team was bad or would prevent that, but it was the accumulation of all of the changes of the business. You know, she said it's not worth it, nor is it correct for me to blame 2020 for this pivot. This pivot is an opportunity built of changes that have been accumulating for the, you know, 6 years we've been in business. And so the fact that I lost my team is unfortunate, but the fact that I get to build a new team to approach this new thing is a challenge that will help me grow as a person. And that's you know, that's the attitude, I think, that will really help her succeed.
Yeah, no, that's an excellent point, and I'm glad that you managed to turn around her particular perspective as you do.
Turned it around. To be clear, I didn't. Well,
I enjoy talking to you. I think you do change people's perspectives. But you dish out some of. I mean, I know that on your blog you don't always stick completely to content marketing. You do have some life advice on there as well. So where would people find more of your writing, Mr. Rose?
Oh, well, you're very kind. If anybody wants to read more of my musings with other people, contentadvisory.net is my website, and that's where my little home on the internet is.
Right. And when people spin the dial on the social media interwebs and look for somebody positive living their best life, where would they find you?
Well, I'm not sure you'll find too much there with regard to my personal life, but my Twitter is at Robert_Rose. And of course, on LinkedIn, I'm just easy to find because LinkedIn doesn't know how to do URLs. So
well, I also in the show notes, I always include a link to the hashtag Friday cocktails as well. So Friday concoctions too.
Oh, so good. Oh, nice.
There's some goodness there. There's somebody living their best life on a Friday. I tell you that.
That is a celebration of my best life. That's exactly right. That is one manifestation. Sure.
All manner of things that you can do with tequila, and now red wine, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, it's a pleasure to see you again in the bar, my friend. Will I see you next week?
You will indeed.
Excellent. See you then. Thank you, Robert. A little mention of politics there, but I think we got away with it. And still no news from the folks at Hendrick, so rest assured, dear listener, I am drinking their gin solely for the pleasure of it. So that's a wrap on episode 35 of the Rockstar CMO effing marketing podcast. Thanks again to Christian for the conversation, to Robert for the inspiring cocktail, and to Keith Smith for a trip down the business development rabbit hole. If you like my guests, please give them a mention, click their links, follow them, and take a look at their work. I really appreciate their time. I will, of course, include all their links in the show notes at rockstarcmo.com/podcast, where you will also find all our previous episodes. But most of all, thank you for dropping a dime into your podcasting jukebox, selecting our track, and jiving along with us. I hope you enjoyed the show. So does the world need another effing marketing podcast? I would love to know what you think. Drop us some feedback, a review, subscribe, share, or just keep listening. I'm glad you're here. Next week, I welcome back Dennis Shaw to discuss his advice on building on rented land. And you heard the man, Robert Rose, will be back in the Rockstar CMO virtual bar. Until then, I've been your host, Ian Truscott, founding editor at rockstarcmo.com, and I hope you'll join us again next week here at Rockstar CMO FM.
You may know you're listening to this show along the Marketing Podcast Network, but did you know there are other great shows on MPN to help your business? Christy Heiler hosts a fantastic podcast called Own It. Christy, tell us more about the show.
Own It is all about celebrating women and non-binary advertising agency owners. We talk about buying out of the Boys Club of Advertising because less than 1% of ad agencies are owned by women.
And where can people subscribe?
You can find the podcast at untilyouownit.com. We're also on the Marketing Podcast Network at marketingpodcast.net. And of course, you can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts.
You heard her. Go subscribe. This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.